Welcome to the Surviving the Human Experience podcast. I am Kristin Aurelia. I am the host and the guest for this show. Woohoo! So today we're going to talk about understanding your biofield and how sound frequency can support your human experience. So I just want to walk through and talk about that because I know I talk a lot about the biofield. I talk about tuning forks, I talk about sound frequency, I talk about all this goodness, and you might be wondering, what in the world am I talking about? So this image here on the screen is one of the best ways to show you what the biofield is. So if you think of your body, you see there, you've got the person in the middle, and they've got that center of the body there where the energy looks like it's coming up from the feet, and then it's coming down from the head, and then it goes out into this field. And so that's called the biofield. And so for the most part, on most individuals, it's typically about 5 to 6 feet out from the body. Everybody's biofield is a little different in the sense that yours may be a little further, or you might be more contracted. We don't know until we work on a person and find out where their biofield sits, but everyone has one. It's invisible. That's why you're not sure, where it is sometimes if you're not familiar with this type of work. However, that's where the biofield is. All right, so first I want to just talk about who is She Wise? What are we all about? So that you know who we are as I'm talking to you and talking through this. So we are integrative holistic practitioners. For those that might be tuning into the podcast for the very first time, certified health and wellness coaches. I'm a certified biofield tuner. And then we offer Zyto, which is a biofeedback mechanism to be able to provide some information on your health and wellness journey. So you'll see me there on the screen in the middle. You'll see Denise Claire in the white jacket, and then you'll see Andrea on the she's on my left. And so we make up She Wise, and you'll see down below we have, like I said, I'm a certified biofield tuner. Got our health coaching certifications from Trinity Natural School of Health. And then Denise and I are National Academy of Sports Medicine certified in nutrition as well as wellness coaching. And then we have our She 360 wellness model on there, which is the model we follow when it comes to working with our wellness clients. So, all right, let's jump in. So, what are we going to cover? We're going to cover understanding your biofield. We're going to talk about what can impact or interfere with your biofield, ways to strengthen your biofield. How can sound frequency support your human experience? Your benefits of tuning your biofield, and then biofield tuning sessions. I'll just kind of give a rundown of the different sessions that are offered. And then we'll talk about the importance of grounding at the very end. So let's jump in. All right, understanding your biofield. What is it? This is a really good definition that just kind of pulls it all together. Human body produces and is surrounded by a complex field of energy and information. It's not a single measurable thing, but rather a framework for understanding how biological, electromagnetic, and subtle processes interact. So I think that's probably a very nice comprehensive definition that gives you the overall about understanding the biofield. And this really is going to kind of set the stage for what I'm talking about for the next, 45 minutes with you. Again, you see the image below. I've shared here that when we're talking about the biofield, I always look at the center of the body. In biofield tuning, we call it the central channel. We work with the Earth Star, which is at the base of your feet or typically tucked under by your ankles. And then we open up that Earth Star, and then we open up the Sun Star, which is at the top of the head. And we just kind of pull that out a little bit. And then we work those outer edges of the biofield, which are pregestation, gestational space. And again, those are about 5 to 6 feet out, give or take, depending on the individual and their life experiences. You may be, your biofield might extend a little further. It may be contracted a little bit, but the baseline is about 5 to 6 feet out from the body on the right and the left. And so I just think this is a great diagram because it shows that there's, this network of communication that's going on around the whole body. And it just kind of all flows and operates together. So again, it's that complex field of energy and information. If you haven't, looked into Biofield Tuning yet, make sure you check out the podcast page. I've got a couple of episodes where I've talked about it, also on the YouTube channel. All right, so that's the nuts and bolts of the biofield, just kind of very basic. We can get a lot more scientific and complex, but for the purpose of this discussion, I just wanted to introduce so you have a general idea of what we're talking about. All right, so let's talk about what can impact or interfere with your biofield. So there's so many things happening in our human experience right now, right? We once upon a time lived in a space where people were spread out. Their living situations were not on top of each other. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. We didn't have all of the electronic means and communications. We didn't have satellites. We didn't have any of this stuff. And so now we've gone into a space where we are connected all the time. And being connected all of the time does come at a cost. It definitely impacts our biofield and everything that we've got going on around us. So, for example, we have 5G frequencies that are happening. There's a lot of the upgrade from 4G to 5G. A lot of people felt that are energy sensitive, and if you're living near some of where those towers have been installed, you might feel it a little bit more. I say server rooms, and I say that because I worked in an IT environment for a long time, and in that space, it was a challenge because the building had a lot of servers in it. And so having that level of um, energetic activity going on and the frequencies coming from those server rooms really impacted me. Not everybody is very sensitive, but I am very sensitive to those types of things. So if you're working in an environment where, and that could extend to not just computers, but it could be around power plants or power lines, phone lines, things of that nature. It's all something to consider. We've got our cell phones, right? We're using our cell phones all the time. We've got them, connected to us and calling people, holding it to your head. The introduction of wireless devices to put in our ears. Things like that have really impacted the amount of exposure we're getting to these different electromagnetic frequencies. Then we have things like Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi routers. Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi routers have really impacted us as well. And so as we're seeing that introduction of, people putting boosts in their house because they've got so many different devices that are connected into the Wi-Fi network, my goodness, what a huge challenge, right? To try to break away from some of that space. So I caution folks that if you have the Wi-Fi routers in your home, try to get them out of your bedrooms or not where you're sleeping. I could add this list is exhaustive, but I could add a few more on here. We have smart meters in the home. Those smart meters, everybody wants to be able to click a button and turn a dishwasher on, for example. That is something that I didn't realize existed, and I just recently found that out. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is really surprising. But all of these smart meters are installed because they're helping the companies be able to read your meter readings without having to come to the house and doing it like we did in the good old fashioned days. And so, again, that's another electromagnetic frequency that's out there. Things like your physical health, disease, injury, if you have injury to the body or you have chronic illness impacting the body, again, it can all change the structure and the signaling that's happening in your biofield. And then we have things like emotional and mental states, right? Things like stress and traumas, especially when it comes to stress nowadays, just the environment that we all live in. It's such a fast-paced world. We see, an increase in burnout. We see an increase in stress-related illnesses. And, it's been said stress can kill because, I mean, you're putting all this pressure in your body and your systems. You're having your cortisol levels raised. You're in fight or flight all the time. Your nervous system is just, wreaking havoc on the nervous system. Things like that are happening. Traumas, they could be present or they could be past. You could think that you've worked through them and you've gone about your business and life is good, and you find out that that trauma might still reside in your biofield and not even realize it. Then we have things like our environment, right? So are you in an environment that has a lot of toxins or chemicals in it? Do you live in a city where there's a lot of pollution and activity happening? Are you in an environment where maybe historically it was a factory or a mill setting that there may be toxins in the ground, or chemical dumping or exposures have occurred? Or maybe there's land, for example, if you're on the West Coast and there's a lot of um, forest fires or earthquakes, or even down in the South where there's burning of trees so that more buildings can be constructed. Like, what are the environmental factors that you're exposed to? And then other people in relational energy. I always kind of chuckle when I say this one. When I gave a presentation on this topic just recently, everybody in the room definitely laughed when I said this, but it is true, right? So other people's energy can impact our biofield. And if we're on top of other people's energy, or they're in our space or we're in their space and they're having a crappy day, or, there's something going on, it can definitely impact the way we feel, the way we think. I mean, sometimes we don't even realize it, right? It could be as simple as being in the store and being in line and sitting there going, what is happening right now? This is definitely not my energy I'm picking up on. And so when things like that happen, we really want to just take the time to really assess, is this mine? Does it belong to me? Should it be here? Is this somebody else's? Let me go ahead and, disregard this energy because it's not mine. And so being able to really discern between that is really, I think, very important. So these are all just some examples. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's a pretty comprehensive list of like the top things that can interfere with your biofield, that are going to be some, areas that you can work with, and you can try to minimize your exposures, and try to really, mitigate some of these. So for example, when we're talking about things like the 5G, well, it's here, right? We can't take the towers down, but you can do things like not sleep with your phone in your bedroom, or turn it on airplane mode when you go to sleep so that it's not emitting that frequency. um, Server rooms, right? If you're able to identify if there's, something in your work environment, maybe you could ask to be seated further away from a certain area. Maybe telework or remote work's an option. So that's one that might be a little bit more trickier, but definitely something worth exploring. When it comes to cell phones, we just talked about, removing your phone from your room at night, or putting it on airplane mode, kind of to piggyback on the 5G, since most of the phones are on that 5G network. If you live near 5G towers, if it's possible, when you do move from where you are, that you assess where 5G towers are, although there's no telling that they won't be placed where you move to next. So there's that. Um, Wi-Fi routers, right? Not having it directly in your bedroom, maybe having it in the basement, having it in the farthest place away from where you sleep at night and where you are most frequently. Oftentimes you see them in the living room, which is where everybody congregates. So you're getting a pretty good healthy dose of electromagnetic frequency when that is there. So you'll want to consider that as well. Physical health and disease and injury, again, being able to work with your doctor, medical professional, wellness practitioner, whoever you're working with, to try to address any injuries that happen, any chronic illnesses, because if you're addressing those, then you're at least able to find ways to strengthen your biofield best you can, right? Everything's not foolproof. However, if we're doing the work to try to, strengthen the biofield as best we can, that's still better than doing absolutely nothing. And then emotional and mental states, right? So assessing your levels of stress, finding ways to address your stress, right? We'll talk about this a little bit further in, but breathing techniques, taking things off your plate, reassessing your life, things like that. Traumas, same exact thing, addressing those traumas, right? Whether it's with your medical health professional, biofield tuning is something I always recommend, but making sure you're addressing those. And then if you can find ways to support your environment, then you do that. Maybe it's adding air purifier in the home, um, clean drinking water, making sure you're filtering it, putting filters on the showers, things like that. All of that stuff matters. Other people in relational energies, if you're feeling like somebody's energy really is impacting you, then maybe remove yourself from that situation or from those individuals. So let's talk a little bit more. Let's go further into ways to strengthen your biofield. I know we just talked about, some of the electromagnetic frequencies, but I want to switch over a little bit. So as it says here, strengthening the biofield generally means improving your energetic balance, emotional regulation, grounding, and mind body coherence. So, things like doing biofield tuning. Of course, I'm going to say I love it because I'm a certified biofield tuner and I do love it. And I know and understand the importance of sound frequency when it comes to the biofield. You can physically feel the shifts and the changes that occur when you're running those forks through the biofield. And I always say to people, it's very much like you've got the central channel where you've got all of your chi, your life force energy, whatever terminology you want to use. It's all stored right down the center of your body. And as we're going through life, we're slowly leaking light out into our biofield. It's like some of it just fractions, little pieces, right? The photons, all of that. It's just kind of leaking out into the field. And when that's happening, it's almost like there's little fragments out there, right? And so we need to go back in and sweep that up and put it right back into that central channel so that we can, just like the trunk of a tree, make it sturdy again, right? And so that's what we're doing when we're working in that biofield and we're doing biofield tuning sessions. Breathing and breath work so huge, and it really does address that stress component. So, doing the 4-4-4 breath or doing the 4-7-8 breath, it's all super duper important because it all works to help stabilize, the entire system, and it allows you to be able to regulate your nervous system as well, right? So addressing the stress, regulating the nervous system, it's all super duper important. So that's another great one. Cleansing practices, so dry brushing, right? So we want to make sure the lymphatic system is working and that we're keeping things going, and we do that through dry brushing. So if you're not familiar with that or you haven't done that already, give that a whirl because it's super awesome. And I think you'd really enjoy that if you haven't tried it. Epsom salt baths, amazing. They clear off energy. They're great for your skin. It just is a really great way to support your body. If you're not an Epsom salt bath fan or you don't like baths in general, it's totally fine. I would recommend showering and getting some of the Epsom salt scrubs. I absolutely love them. They work great. And especially when you're in a situation where your time is limited and you don't really have enough time to, sit in the bath. Well, the great thing that you could do is you could certainly go ahead and you can use those scrubs, get in the shower and get out, but they feel really great and really, really, really refreshing. Emotional regulation, right? You need to be able to, as I say, and Denise always says too, move through, don't attach to, feel the emotions and then release them. Allow yourself to experience them. Don't allow them to become trapped because you're trying to push back and you're like, I don't want to feel this feeling. It's icky. I don't want to do it. No, 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 no. Allow yourself to have your moment. Do that. It's really important. You want, think of the emotional regulation piece as the laundry cycle, right? We want to be able to start the cycle, let it cycle through, let it run through. The water comes in, it eventually drains, it spins, and then it's done. And then the cycle is completed. We want to allow the emotional regulation piece to occur. And if you struggle with that, then get support for it because there are plenty of practitioners, licensed medical professionals who can support you in that capacity. Grounding and earthing, another really fantastic thing to do when it comes to grounding and earthing. Super simple. And it's an affordable option too. Take your socks and shoes off, go outside, put your feet in the grass. That is grounding. Find a tree, place your hands against the tree so that you can feel that energy coming up from that tree. So restorative. It really is a beautiful way to help strengthen your biofield. And for those of you who haven't tried them, grounding sheets are another fantastic option as well. So if you're finding that you can't get outside, maybe you're in the city life, or you don't have access to a lot of, space outdoors, then grounding sheets are wonderful. And they also make grounding mats that you can plug into the wall, you can stand on, and it helps with grounding you. Journaling is another beautiful thing to do, right? So as you're writing, you're able to get that energy out, you're able to move that energy. So definitely would recommend journaling if you haven't tried it. And if you're not much of a writer or you just really don't enjoy writing, then do a picture journal because picture journaling is equally as amazing. So give that a whirl. Then we talked about the EMF exposures, right? So you want to limit them as much as you can. We live in a world where they're unavoidable, unless you've gone completely off the grid and nobody could find you and you're living in a tent. But outside of that, for the most part, we're going to have some EMF exposure. So find ways to support that exposure, right? Reduce it as much as you can. I am thrilled because I recently came across some really awesome magnet jewelry that helps with EMF exposure, helps support the body using magnet, almost like magnet therapy for those of you who are familiar with that. And so that's been really awesome. There's some other, different ways and modalities out there. Don't hold your cell phone to your head. That's a good one. Don't use the wireless, earbuds. Try to use wired if you have to, or use the speaker on your phone, holding your phone to talk. Those are, some easy fixes there. Meditation, right? Meditation is huge. Go into meditations and, use visualization techniques. They can go hand in hand, but meditation is wonderful practice. Movement, making sure you're getting your exercise, making sure you're caring for your body and you're keeping your body in good working order. And I'm not talking about exercise for vanity purposes. I'm talking about getting your movement in, getting your stretching in to care for your body. The nature connection is huge. Being able to, get out there in Mother Nature and look at the trees, look at the birds, look at the sun, get that healthy, fresh air in. Super, duper important. Prayer is another huge one. Every day, if you can incorporate prayer, if you are someone who prays, this is a beautiful way to ensure that you're still, keeping in a space where you're strengthening that biofield. Rest and relaxation, that is easier said than done. I know for sure because I have that struggle because there's always so much to do and not enough time. But finding the way to incorporate rest and relaxation, having a really solid sleep routine where you're turning the lights off, at least an hour earlier, or dimming the lights, that your body is getting winding down and you're not scrolling at night before bed or in the bed, because that can be quite a challenge. And then, of course, sound therapy. I just mentioned it. Biofield tuning being one of my go-tos with the tuning forks. A lot of folks enjoy sound baths. I absolutely do as well. Feeling a good gong being hit always feels really great too. So being able to incorporate, as we shared, sound frequencies into your journey is absolutely a beautiful way to support your biofield. And then we talked about visualization techniques already a little bit. So that one is already covered. All right, so introducing the forks. I want to talk to you a little bit about the forks. So as I mentioned, I'm a certified biofield tuner. I work with a whole bunch of different forks, but I wanted to just give a shout out to a couple of the favorite forks in my world. So the 144 hertz fork, this one, I use it a lot to clear stuck or stubborn areas, sheds ancestral baggage, outdated beliefs, and blind spots that stifle flow, creativity, and clarity. Subconscious tensions relaxes typically. And so I've got a weighted and an unweighted fork, and I'll talk about the difference between weighted and unweighted in just a moment. Then I like to use the 174 hertz work. I call it the workhorse. That's what we call it in Biofield Tuning. This one provides your body with feedback and information. You can release pain and tension and helps with grounding. So that one's used quite a bit throughout a session in Biofield Tuning. And then the 222 hertz. Oh my gosh, my favorite of all of the forks. The peace, the harmony. This is the emotional healing and stability, spiritual growth, enhanced creativity, and healing frequency. So I use this one a lot in sessions, and I use it too when I'm working on myself because it really just brings and smooths in a beautiful, nice feeling of peace and harmony. And then the 417 hertz, again, this one's used for grounding, facilitating change. I often use this one at the end of a session when I'm wrapping someone up and closing out the session. So that's another one that's a beautiful fork. The 528 hertz, this one's used for stress reduction, helps with better sleep, releasing tension. And again, this is another one that I kind of jump between the 417 and the 528 at the end of a session, depending on the person and what their body is telling me, what feedback I'm receiving. The Fibonacci pair, this is the 89 hertz and the 144, helps to restore the body's natural order and harmonic perfection. It's also called the golden ratio. So that one's another set that I absolutely love, and I use that a lot when I'm working on clients and we're doing like sessions that are targeted towards certain areas, or they have a particular spot they want worked on. The Schumann pair, the 54.81 hertz, the yang, and 62.64 hertz, the yin. This is the heartbeat of the earth, creates binaural beats of the Schumann resonance. It's calming and relaxing for the body and the brain. Another favorite pair of mine. And I have boots that I put on mine, so it will I feel like it amplifies the frequency a little bit, especially because the Schumann pair, for example, are weighted forks, so you don't hear the sound with those, but you feel the vibration. So when I'm applying those to the body, you can really feel the sound go out on the body. So it's super duper awesome. So those are a few of my favorite forks. Now, I did share that I would talk about the difference between the weighted fork and the unweighted fork. So when I'm working with a weighted fork, this one's used in the field, so the biofield of the body as I'm working out in that space that um, is out in the 6 feet out space, or five to 6 feet, depending on the person's biofield, but also applied to the physical body. They produce lower frequencies and they have barrels on the tines. So they're the ones that you'll see, these little circle barrels on the end, the top of the fork, and you don't hear them because they are weighted. So when you strike that fork, you could see the vibration or feel the vibration, but they don't make that sound that you see with the unweighted forks. So the unweighted forks, they're primarily used in the biofield. So as we're working outside of the body, the frequency is not low enough to be received on the body typically. So we're typically working in that field. However, there is the sonic slider, which is used a lot on the body. And I do hold the forks, the unweighted, over the body, and I comb and column and do all the things with them. And they have no barrels on the tines. So they don't have those circle barrels on the end. So you'll actually hear the frequency and you'll hear the sound, which is super duper awesome. And it's always beautiful to hear those sounds, and you can listen to the tones and the undertones, and it's really just an amazing thing to experience, both the weighted and unweighted forks. So let's talk a little bit more about the benefits of tuning your biofield. Main areas I want to cover here: coherence, relaxation, and restoration. It's support for the physical, emotional, mental, and energetic well-being. Most clients that I've worked on have typically stated that they felt so calm, they felt a release, they felt relaxed, they felt that they let go of certain things when we finish a session. So the feedback has um, come back. Different terms and words are used typically by different clients, but the general consensus is a sense of relaxation, release, and feeling lighter. I hear a lot about feeling lighter, and that's the initial after the session. In days to come, I usually receive additional feedback from clients sharing how things have shifted or changed, or different things are occurring in their body. So for example, some of the benefits, there's better sleep and relaxation because the body is releasing, right? And so that can lend itself for some to experience better sleep and relaxation. Deep nervous system relaxation, if you've been holding on to trauma, or just a stuck pattern, or something that's just really been in your field and you're just having a hard time just releasing it, this helps because it's going to give that nervous system the support that it needs to say, I can woo-saw now. And then things like emotional healing and release, right? So if we're having those emotions that are stuck, it has not been an unusual thing for me to see somebody go through a session and have an emotional release where maybe they've cried, or maybe they've, really just felt their body just kind of let go and they needed to just breathe through, or they've had, some sort of experience that's allowed them to release whatever was stuck. So that's really important. Expanded consciousness and self-awareness. I've heard that one quite a bit. As we're able to work in the biofield and kind of work at the subconscious and conscious level, there's somewhat of a merging that can happen with the two. And that merge allows you to have some more self-awareness where maybe you might have been experiencing some disconnectedness or disassociation. Improved mental clarity, being able to really think clearer because you're not as bogged down or have all these things swirling around. I've had a few clients share their experiences with that. Increased energy and vitality, right? So when we're letting something go that's been weighing us down, we absolutely can experience an increased energy and vitality. Pain reduction and physical relief. So I've had clients come in that had knee pain or shoulder pain or back pain, had been in car accidents, and have been working with chiropractors and their physicians, their licensed medical professionals. Because as I share on my show, I am a wellness practitioner. I am not a doctor. I am not a lawyer. I am not a physical therapist. I am not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychologist. I share all of that stuff. However, I say all of that and I share what my clients report back. And so, trauma processing and integration, I've heard that from clients as well, where we're working in the field and something comes up and we just kind of work through it, and they feel that integration from the sound. Reduce stress and anxiety, because as we're unscrambling the messages in the biofield, right, it's almost like you're a receiver, you're a radio receiver, and you've got all these sound waves and all these things happening, and it can get really chaotic and crazy, and you've been leaking light your whole life because different life experiences have happened and all these things. Well, as we're bringing that all back together, we're creating a clear signal, and as we create that clear signal, it changes and shifts the way the body hears and processes messages. So the body is supported when it comes to addressing stress and things like anxieties. Those anxieties can very well be caught up mixed messages that are happening that have scrambling in the field. Release of limiting beliefs, right? And so that happens so often. I'll work with somebody who, may feel like they're not worthy, or that they can't have, a say in what happens because they grew up in a household where their parents wanted them to be seen and not heard. And so for the first time, they're able to shed that pattern and be able to step into who they are and say the things and feel the things that they want to feel. So that's huge. Okay, so let's look at the different types of biofield tuning sessions. So there are different types of sessions. I just wanted to give a few here that are kind of the popular ones. So there's the adrenal rhythm reset. This is typically for my folks who've gone through a heck of a lot and they maybe have adrenal burnout, or high stress, and they've been running, 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 and they're really struggling with the adrenal aspect because they've just been running on reserves, and they finally get to a point where they just completely tank. And so on that one, we do a series of 3 sessions. So that first session, this one's a popular session. So we'll, assess the adrenals in the first one, see what's going on, give them some love with some sound frequency. And then the second session, we're really introducing some more love there and some more frequency. And the third one, we're really integrating and pulling it all together and really helping support the adrenals. So those are done a week apart. Sacral stabilization, exactly what it says. So working with the sacral area, creating that stabilization there. Oftentimes, we could find that there could be some imbalances or being thrown off, and so that one really works with that whole area. Our seated chair sessions. So I just did several of those up at an expo a week ago, and so those are great midi sessions. We work on the shoulders, we work on the heart chakra space, and then the throat, and just opening that stuff up, so those areas, I should say, up, and then you'll feel the release in the shoulders. So, really great for someone who's just looking for a nice release and a nice relaxation, especially if you're someone who holds a lot of tension in your shoulders. I was really excited working on someone last weekend who came in and she'd had pain for so long in her back. And so we worked and we worked and we worked and we did that seated chair session. And by the end of that session, she was in tears because she said that's the first time she felt relief from that pain. That pain had been there so long. So the seated chair sessions, I always say, might be small and short, but they're mighty. They really do some great things. So, and that was really a wonderful testament to how amazing that abbreviated session could be. The sonic meridian flush. So again, we're working with the meridian points here. This one's a little more elaborate. So the client really gets to have the works is what I call it, because we're working with all of those meridians and doing a flush of the entire meridian space. So that's a really great one. The standard sessions. So the standard session is, of course, one of the most popular. This is the one I usually start with a new client because I really want to be able to assess their biofield, get an idea of, what area they want to work and what area their body is asking to be worked. So for this one, the client is, laying down, we're opening the Earth Star, we're opening the Sun Star, we're working out in the biofield, we're using the pendulum to get an idea of where it's the wellness instrument that's used to figure out which part of the body is asking for attention. And so that session, those, typically are an hour. And again, it's a standard session, so it allows us to really assess the biofield. And I have a lot of great feedback from those sessions. Those are really wonderful ones to get yourself into biofield tuning and get an idea of what it feels like. The spine walk, also known as spine slide. This one here is great. I've used it so many times, especially on clients who've been in car accidents and had neck or back injuries. And this one really, you're able to kind of like you walk up the spine with the forks one after the other, and I keep the boots on so that the boots on the end of the fork are kind of radiating that frequency. And I've had some really wonderful feedback where individuals who are maybe experiencing back pain or neck pain following injuries or accidents felt a really great release. And then I'll kind of work the back as well as I'm doing that because I want to pull everything out. And we take our time on that one. So those are the most popular ones. Of course, if somebody comes in and they have a specific area or focus, then we can target the area or focus that they are mentioning. Now, when I do my sessions, some are in person and some are virtual, depending on where the client is. As I mentioned, I did some in person at the expo. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, so I'll have clients that are here local. We also have space up in Connecticut. So we've traveled to do these different sessions if I'm in the local area of somebody that's there. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we do virtual sessions as well for SheWise. And so I do virtual tunings all the time. And I've had clients that were skeptical of the virtual tuning and they came in person the first time and they did all their subsequent ones virtually. They just wanted to know and see what it felt like. And they reported that they felt that there was really no difference in results. The only difference was they weren't physically sitting in front of me, but they were on Zoom. So we were able to, look at each other and see each other and all of that good stuff. So for those who aren't local, then absolutely a virtual session is an option for you. All right. And so I just wanted to wrap up by sharing the importance of grounding. And so I just want to invite everybody as we conclude, if you're not driving and you're seated and you're able to just, we're going to take some deep breaths. We're going to imagine our feet going into the ground like the roots of a tree, and that we're really just strong and stable. That we've got our midsection is strong like the trunk of the tree that you're seeing, right? That it's just a strong, stable, sturdy in the earth. And so we'll go ahead and do that. And we're going to inhale for 4. We're going to hold for 4. And then we're going to exhale for 4. So let's go ahead. We're going to do a nice box breath. We're going to inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Release 2, 3, 4. And then again, we're going to inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Release 2, 3, 4. And then one last time. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Release 2, 3, 4. Beautiful. And so that's one way to ground. Also, oftentimes I'll take my 222 fork and I'll just strike it a few times so that I can just whew, and that helps. I mentioned the grounding mat. I mentioned standing outside with your feet in the grass as another beautiful option. All right, and if you're interested in connecting with SheWise, we've got SheWise Wellness and SheWise Publications. So number is 240-927-3323. If you want to schedule appointments or just find out more about what we offer, you could go to our websites at shewisewellness.com or shewisepublications.com, at shewisewellness@gmail.com, and then email shewisepublications@gmail.com. So on the wellness side, we offer the Zyto scanning, which is the biometric feedback that we are able to provide. So those are used in our wellness consults and in our sessions. And then I've got the Biofield Tuning that I do, and then Denise does energy movement as well for sessions. And then on SheWise Publication side, we have, of course, the podcast, which you are listening to right now, and we are so grateful and thankful that you're here and spending time with us. And then we've got all of our books that we've got published as well. And then we offer services to help those who are trying to self-publish and trying to figure out how that journey works. So feel free to reach out. Again, check us out, shewisewellness.com or shewisepublications.com. We are happy to talk with you further and to just kind of share all of the great things that are happening at SheWise. And then again, the podcast, you're listening to it right now. But if you haven't listened to other episodes, it airs every Tuesday at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Dream Vision 7 Radio. You can also find it on the major podcast platforms like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, all that jazz. But the direct radio page link is here. And again, it airs 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. And then also, if you miss an episode, there is the archive section. So please feel free to go ahead and check out the archives. There's all kinds of content and information. We'd love for you to go ahead and check us out. And then lastly, we have the SheWise drawing. So for those who haven't entered yet, if you're new to SheWise or you just haven't gotten a chance to join the newsletter, go to shewisepublications.com or shewisewellness.com, join the newsletter, and we will be doing a drawing monthly where the winner will have the choice of a book of choice that they can select that's published through SheWise. And then we also have our hats and our t-shirts. So make sure, if you haven't already, that you do go in and sign up for a newsletter. We have content. We send it out monthly. We do the monthly newsletter on the first of the month. Typically, it's the first of the month. And then If there is any type of event or something special, then we may send out another email, but typically what you get is a monthly newsletter. So we're not trying to spam you every week or every day with newsletters or content because we know it can be overwhelming. Check us out on Facebook. We've got She Wise Publications on Facebook. Also, we are on Instagram as She Wise Publications. And then we have the YouTube channel, which is Surviving the Human Experience YouTube channel. So check us out at any of those locations. Lots of content continuing to come out, and we are thankful that you joined us. So thank you for joining our episode today. Be well and stay blessed.